Today I'd like to talk about how to play against the Benko gambit. Actually, I think there are lots of systems that you can use against the Benko gambit. It's just a matter of picking one you like and sticking to it long enough to learn it. You don't meet the Benko so often, but players who do play it tend to be fanatics about it and they know it well. So it's what you do need to know something worth learning to play against it. um, just looking around, John Watson, I think, would like you to play Queen C2, perfectly reasonable move, and Nick Pert in his DVD, which I don't own but I have seen the headlines, and he suggests you play Knight to F3. Again, a very reasonable move. I mean, both of these score about 60%, so White scores 6 points out of every 10 when they play with it. I mean, maybe Black's got some ideas about how to get equality here, but they're both doing very well for White if you want the system. I mean, I have always liked, when I saw not a videotape but a cassette tape by David Goodman many years ago called Bashing the Benko, which recommended the system with E3. We're going to play solidly in the middle, not take on any great responsibilities, and get our pieces sorted out with Knight to C3, A4, Rook A3, and preparing with the Rook on A3. It's not your A pawn isn't pinned, so you can capture on B5 with what you like, and just try and lock up the queen side so that Black doesn't get any activity there. I mean, it's the way that White would like to play in the end, having developed and castled or moved the king in the Benko, but what in this variation, White tries to lock up the queen side straight away and then develops. So that's quite a nice system. I'm not quite sure how many it scores these days, but it's certainly an okay way to play. Just looking at it, yeah. I mean, I've got it on the Chess Masters database. We've got it's been played 1,500 times, and White wins 42% of games and draws another 35%. So White's got a very healthy 60% score with or more with this E3 system. Another one which might appeal is instead of playing E3 is to play B6. And one of the ideas for Black in this position, so that this pawn's a bit of a target, I have seen it recommended that Black play A4 and bishop to A6, but this wastes so much time that White can get in very quickly, Knight to C3, and after bishop to A6 you can get in F4 exclamation mark, and follow it up with E4, and this plan seems to work very well for White. So this this A5 system no longer seems to be best for Black. So that's quite a decent system, Shirov variation, which made me think if F4 is such an appealing idea for you, why not play the main pawn storm variation, which is to say after A6 we'll take on A6, and let's say Black takes back with the bishop. They don't always; they sometimes play G6 with the idea that you can't play the double fianchetto system with B3 so easily. But that's not of any interest to us. So let's assume that Black plays B takes A6, bishop takes A6 rather, Knight to C3, and again Black can hold this move back, but something like D6 F4. The pawn storm variation, and after G6, Knight to F3, bishop to G7, we'll play E4, and after takes we won't be able to castle, but we can move our rook into the middle behind that F4 with rook takes F1, and this is a critical position, and Black very often castles here, and I wonder if that's not the most accurate. It's certainly suggested in lots of books that White should continue here with E5, and that's certainly a very very logical way to continue. There are alternatives here, for instance Rook F2, Rook Queen E2, and King F2 may be best of all. with the idea that after queen to b6, king to g1, and we've kind of castled the long way round, and we have an okay kind of game here. Knight a6, e5, and if I mean, black shouldn't open up the game, I think. So knight to d7, and now queen e2 with a small advantage. Well, Stockfish says best part of a pawn advantage, but with an an advantage to white, let's say. I mean, black will know this type of position. This is a very typical Benko position, and I expect that Stockfish is not understanding this position. But white often spends an awful long while trying to arrange a move like e5, and it seems to have been able to achieve it very quickly. Even so, this assumes that castles has happened, and I think if you look in the books, after rook takes f1, Stefan Pedersen, there are two chaps called Pedersen who've written a book on the Benko, Nikolai and Stefan. So if I say Pedersen without qualification, you're going to have to guess which book I got it out of. So Stefan Pedersen says queen b6 is best here, and I mean, yes, e5 is possible, but queen e2 might be best, and after knight bd7, king f2, we have similar sorts of lines as before, but here c4 check, and we can't hide our king away on g1, so king to g3, hold on to your hats, knight to c5, h3, and we're obviously spending quite a bit of time reorganising our king side without getting on with a move like e5, but e5 is in the post. And so, although black's well able to play this position, it's very playable for black. I think white's doing well in terms of achieving their own goals. Instead of h6, e5 would be a possibility here, and after the check, knight to b3 is an idea. But I think white's doing okay here. So that's if what black just goes for a straightforward development, including castles. Even if they delay castles with queen b6, I think we got an okay game with these this constant threat of e5. I think the longer you leave it, the better it becomes sometimes, this e5 move. But equally, you can catch black out with it, like with an early e5. So black players started looking at this a bit more carefully and thought, well, let's try and reorganise our game a little bit more carefully. Let's play queen to a5 here, with the idea that that's going to stop white playing e4, and therefore stopping them castling and stopping them doing all sorts. So after queen a5, bishop to d2 is very logical, but we don't have that bishop on its most active square, so that's kind of a win for black. And if we carry on bishop to g7, e4, now if black wants to leave the white king side where it is, castles is an okay move here. If not, takes on f1, takes on f1, and now if queen to b4, looking at this b pawn, well, I think you're welcome to that. We'll just smack black in the face with e5 with advantage. I don't care what sort of compensation black thinks that they've got, but I think this is pretty good for white. And if castles e5 again, I think is pretty good. And after knight to e8, again trying to keep things closed. Black's got problems here. This is quite a good position for white. For an old game between Jakub Mure and Mark Hebden, played in Harringay of all places. So that's a good enough line for white. And after takes on it, f1 takes on f1, knight fd7 I think probably is a fair way to play, and lots of moves are possible here. But this king f2 system, king to g1, knight b6, and now e5 again, and white's carrying out their plan without too much interference from black. So that's if black is helpful and takes on f1. If they don't take on f1 but castle, this may be the best line of all, and well, all sorts of possibilities here. Bishop takes a6 is a move. E5 is a move. Although I think this now is better for black. We've got uncomfortable pressure on that e pawn, and we can't play our favourite move, queen to e2. So bishop to e2 in this position is best. We've got rather passive, solid bishops rather than very active ones, but that pawn on e4 to e5 is still looking lively, and analysis seems to go queen to b4, and now e5. Black can play these closed moves, knight d7, knight e8, but a line in one of the books goes takes on e5, takes on e5, knight to g4, and now we're going to play takes on a6, takes on a6, and now we can play queen to e2, and we've got this nice attack down the middle. I suspect in this position the best move for black is not to regain the pawn with queen takes b2, however tempting that looks. Just rook b1 here, and black's got equal numbers of pawns, but this is not a good position for them. All the advantages are with white here, I think. But instead, after queen to e2, queen to b8 is the recommended move, because instead of taking the b pawn, we're threatening to take the e pawn. So this is the best way to play for black. And after something like castles, knight takes e5, and now white may have a small advantage here, but certainly not worse. But black's played well enough to hold back our pawns, and that's okay for white. Okay, for black rather. So it's a small advantage here for white. So that's the pawn storm variation. It's not at all fashionable. I've seen it left out of some accounts of Benko theory, and it's very few lines of analysis in most of the books. I think it gets one line in Nunn's chess openings from '99. So you might surprise people with it. I don't think it's too hard to learn for black if they know you're going to play it. I don't think it's got as much to it as some variations, but you know, you're not going to meet the Benko that often. Have a go with it and enjoy it. The pawn storm variation of the Benko. See what you think.